Hey everyone, Ranger William here from the Overmountain Victory National Historic Trail, bringing you another episode, part 4 of our program, Covered with Flame and Smoke, Weapons and Tactics at the Battle of Kings Mountain, October 7th, 1780. Now, what we're getting into here is one of my favorite parts of our story, one of my favorite aspects. It's the leadership style that you see used by the Patriot officers. Now, they won't kind of talk about their three main points of leadership, but they're going to just kind of use one term to kind of summarize it. They call it Indian play. So what does that mean? Why are they calling it this? What are they really talking about? So if you haven't seen episodes 1 through 3 of our series yet, go back and check those out. I'm going to do a quick summary of them here. So episode 1, we talked about well, who are these guys? Where are they coming from on the trail? What brings them to this fight? What kind of weapons are they using? What is a flintlock? How does that work? The ballistics of a gun. We also talked about in episode 2. We talked about the weapons themselves, muskets. What are some of the advantages, the disadvantages? Same for the rifle, advantages and disadvantages, as well as hand-to-hand combat weapons, bayonets, hatchets. These may be homemade bayonet kind of deals. And then episode 3, we talked about who are the forces, what is this ground like, the rocks, the cliffs, the picked marksmen. And now we're going to jump in here with this leadership, this idea of Indian play. So here's a great painting of the battle by Richard Luce. Gives you kind of an idea of kind of how disorganized some of these Patriot tactics may appear. But there is a method to the madness. The Patriots, when they go into battle here, they are relying on tactics that they have learned on the frontier. They have refined this style of combat, this style of fighting for the past 6 years, both during the American Revolution, but also some of these guys, especially the ones who are now up in Virginia, they have been using this kind of fighting against the Shawnee Nation back in Lord Dunmore's War in 1774, back when the royal governor actually was leading some of these guys. So what their experiences have kind of taught them, have highlighted over these 6 years of fighting against the Cherokee Nation, the Chickamauga Cherokee, the Shawnee Nation, maybe even the Muskogee, the Creek Nation, back down more in Georgia and Alabama. What they've learned is what you could call small unit tactics. They have learned the importance of individual actions rather than moving as a regiment, as a company, like you would see in other more traditional fighting. What you're going to kind of see kind of highlighted here in this idea is moving and covering as an individual, taking cover when it's provided, utilizing shots of opportunity. I'm just going to kind of highlight their tactics. Kind of covering each other, being able to fall back if you want to, but then as long as you just stay in the fight. Now, they are still under colonial law. We're not going to say that these guys don't know how to fight as a unit. They don't know the manual of arms. They are under colonial law, which is going to require men of fighting age, with a few exceptions, to gather either once a month, twice, every other month, and they're going to practice drill. They're going to practice fighting as a unit. So firing in a volley all together, moving in a line, marching. They're going to know how to do that. They kind of have to. If they don't show up to drill, they're going to be fined. They're going to be punished. You are putting the entire community at risk by not participating in this practice as a group. So they know how to do it, but then their experience on the frontier against the different Native American nations is going to make their fighting style kind of a hybrid of these two styles. It's going to make their fighting, like you see here at Kings Mountain, much more similar to what you would see from Cherokee warriors than what you would see from the Continental Army. Now, you also see this idea of leadership by example. They're not going to force these guys to do something that they don't want to. Several days before the battle, when they are about to go into battle, they think Ferguson and his loyalists are at Gilberttown. The Patriots are about to go into the attack. They gather the men and they give them a speech. John Speltz, one participant, he actually records what Isaac Shelby addressed to the men. He says, quote, "When we encounter the enemy, don't wait for the word of command. Let each one of you be your own officer and do the very best you can, taking every care you can of yourselves, and availing yourselves of every advantage that chance may throw your way. If in the woods, shelter yourselves and give them Indian play. Advance from tree to tree, pressing the enemy and killing and disabling all you can. Your officers will shrink from no danger. They will be constantly with you, and the moment the enemy give way, be on the alert and strictly obey orders, end quote. So there you have Isaac Shelby using that term, Indian play, but then kind of describing what that means. Take cover. If you see a good shot at the enemy, take it. If you feel like you have to fall back, that's okay, as long as you stay in the fight. But also be ready to obey orders. Now, it's something else that you kind of see come from this idea of like Cherokee and Shawnee warriors is the leaders being leaders. They're leading by example. They are not just going to be telling the men what to do while they stay in the back or from a good vantage point. They're going to be right there in the thick of it with them. Now, at the base of the ridge of the actual battle, so October 7th, these guys are getting ready to go into the attack. Those 4 columns have formed up. William Campbell is actually recorded as giving the men one more chance to leave if they don't want to be involved with it, making sure that only the dedicated, only the guys who are ready for this are the ones going forward. He's recorded as saying, quote, that if any of them, men or officers, were afraid to quit the ranks and go home, that he wished no man to engage in the action who could not fight, that as for himself, he was determined to fight the enemy a week, if need be, to gain the victory. Later on, he also is recorded as saying to the men, when the center columns were ready for attack, they were to give the signal by raising a regular frontier war whoop after the Indian style and rush forward, doing the enemy all the injury possible, end quote. So here you have not only references to Indian play, but actual Indian tactics, these things that Native American warriors would have been using, the war whoop. Now he's talking about it here as a signal, as to say, hey, you can hear that through the woods, across the mountainside, we're ready to go. And this is what you're going to see one of the loyalist officers. He's going to return from patrol. He's going to hear that whoop. He's going to hear the battle begin and tell Patrick Ferguson that they are the Yellin' Boys. These things are ominous. He has heard these men use this before, this kind of psychological weapon of this shrieking holler, this whoop, kind of a combination of Ric Flair and a pack of wolves. They're going to use this not only to encourage themselves, but to intimidate the enemy and signal that they are in the battle, they are in their positions. Now, as you see the Patriots move around and get ready to get into position here, a few accounts collected by Lyman Draper talk about at least one of Ferguson's sentries being silently killed, or I think one of the accounts talks about them being turned off. So you're looking at these guys creeping through the woods. It's been raining all night and that morning, so the leaves are all wet, the sticks are all wet, not making a lot of noise, moving and kind of silently killing with hand-to-hand weapons, killing a few of Ferguson's sentries before they're finally spotted. That gunshot is fired and the battle commences. Now, when that shot is fired, again, William Campbell, leading by example here, he's described as stripping off his coat, throwing it to the side, going into the battle with only his shirt sleeves. Very unconventional for a leader. You can kind of see that up here on the in the painting behind me. But then shouting out, quote, "Shout like hell and fight like devils," end quote. Robert Campbell is also going to describe this. In our other episode, Robert Campbell gave us a great description of the rocky outcroppings and the wagons. Here he's going to say, quote, "The commanding officer gave the word of command to raise the Indian war whoop and charge," end quote. Now, as these guys really tuck into the fight, they're not going to try and regain control of their men. Again, leading by example, not from a good vantage point, they're going to be in there with them. Nearly half of all the recorded Patriot killed, 28 Patriots killed in the fight, nearly half of them are going to be officers from the Virginians, from William Campbell's 200 men on the southeast side of the ridge, leading by example in the front with their men. Now, he's not the only one doing some encouragement, though. Benjamin Cleveland is going to also be doing this. One of his guys recorded Benjamin Cleveland as going amongst his men and saying, quote, "My brave fellows, we have beaten the Tories and we can beat them again. They are all cowards. If they had the spirit of men, they would join with their fellow citizens in supporting the independence of their country. When you are engaged, you are not to wait for the word of command from me. I will show you, by my example, how to fight. I can undertake no more. Every man must consider himself an officer and act from his own judgment. Fire as quick as you can and stand your ground as long as you can. When you can do no better, get behind trees or retreat, but I beg you not to run quite off. If we are repulsed, let us make a point of returning and renewing the fight. Perhaps we may have better luck in the second attempt than the first. If any of you are afraid, such shall have leave to retire, and they are requested immediately to take themselves off, end quote. So long description there, but there you see again, it's not just an Overmountain thing, but Ben Cleveland from the Yadkin Valley, the eastern side of the Blue Ridge, telling his men the same idea, telling his guys, you know what to do here. Take cover. Fall back if you need to. I'll be leading by example. Don't wait for me to tell you what to do. But if you feel you can't do it, if you're not up to the task, go ahead and get out of here. Now, the question is, if any of these guys felt that way, would they have done it? Whenever you see these offers being made, never is it recorded of any guys leaving. It's always pointed out that the men stay, that no men leave. You got to think, if they had left, how much shame would that have brought to them from their comrades? So interesting to think about there. But then once the battle begins and it's in the thick of it, again, this great description of Ben Cleveland going amongst his men, shouting out, "Yonder is your enemy and the enemy of mankind." Isaac Shelby going around with his perpetual battle cry, it was called, of never shoot until you see an enemy, never see an enemy without bringing him down. So very loose as far as orders are concerned, but they are leading their men. These guys, they don't need to be micromanaged. They are frontier fighters. They know how to fight in the woods, how to use their hunting weapons. They know how to defeat the enemy as long as they're given the chance. So there you have some leadership examples, leadership lessons from the Patriots, the Battle of Kings Mountain. So this has been episode 4, looking at what they termed Indian play, looking at this kind of unconventional tactics, looking at this unconventional sense of leadership by example, right there with the guys. Another episode of our program covered with flame and smoke. So again, if you have not seen the previous episodes, go back, check those out, learn more about the weapons technology, the musket, the rifle, the location, what does this ridge look like, what is on there during the battle, all that good stuff. But I hope you enjoyed. Please tune in again. Again, this is Ranger William from the Overmountain Victory National Historic Trail saying thanks.